What's cooler than being cool? Joining us on Cool, 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 the podcast that explores the intersections of inspiring technology, fascinating people, captivating stories, or a combination of all three. So get ready to embrace your inner cool kid as we go behind the scenes with today's innovators and storytellers. I'm your host, Cameron Kitt. I'm the founder of Yo-Yo's. It stands for You Own Your Own Stories, a documentary storytelling company and a podcast company. And today we have the privilege of chatting with Lita Bendoon, the awesome owner of Metamorphosis Inc., who's helping people with tattoo art to help cover scars from breast mastectomies and healing people, I think, beyond just skin deep. Welcome, Lita.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So yeah, you've been a tattoo artist for 12 years, and you've specialized in artwork cover for 8. Is that right, or is it longer now?
It is longer now. I think it's somewhere around 16.
Woo! And so, yeah, 16 and 12. That's amazing, because I think when I did my intro, I think you're someone who's like a cool person who's using cool technology to help people change their story of their relationship with their body. Would you agree?
I would, yes.
So yeah, tell me, how did this get started for you?
It all began with a woman named Alice. And years ago when I got into tattooing, it's a really long story, the whole journey. I've always had this mindset that I follow the wind. You know, I kind of go where life takes me. And life blew me in the direction of getting into tattooing. But being an artist in a sea of artists, it's very hard to kind of define yourself and figure out where you want to land. And this woman named Alice walked in my door one day. And this was back when I lived in Tennessee. And she was about 65 years old. And she began to cry and tell me that she had had a mastectomy like 12 years prior to that. So she lived with this for 12 years. And there were some key things that she had said in that consultation, which was she cried every day when she got out of the shower. The doctors had stated to her that she should be thankful that she was alive. And she was so horrifically scarred that reconstruction and alternate surgeries were not an option for her because there was no skin and things enough left available. So I took her that day and I said, well, let's see, what we're working with here. And to this day, I think she is one of the worst cases that I ever saw. And it's interesting that it was my first one, and I think it had to be dramatic in that sense. But when I began to work with her, because it was a fairly large piece, I began to see a transformation. So a few months in, she stopped in unannounced and told me that she had bought a top, a little bit lower cut, because she always wore high neck tops. And when she was out shopping, and she was a Southern belle, so she was like, a woman commented on my flower. And I saw just this slight elation for her. And that's when it first hit my brain that, wow, this really made a difference. It's not just putting a Band-Aid on something and whatnot. It began this healing stage. And a few months later, after a few more sessions, she came in again. And I'm like, Alice, what are you doing here? And she said, I just had to tell you that I had sex with my shirt off for the first time and you loved my tattoo. And she had been dating a gentleman who was a few years younger, and he rode a motorcycle, and he had talked her into potentially seeking out an artist so that she felt better about herself. And the third time she came into the studio, she informed me that she had accepted a position for modeling prosthetic bras on stage. So through just that one person, the amount of transformation that she received in that tattoo, so did I. And I knew right then and there that was the reason the wind blew me here. And that was supposed to go after, because it wasn't anywhere around at that time.
That is so beautiful, Lita. And so it wasn't something that you were really looking for. It came to you, right? It's like, yeah, she walked in the door and said, or she reached out to you. Somebody had said she should. So just let's back up a little for listeners who might not be familiar. A breast mastectomy, it's always a tough one, is generally something that happens when you've gotten to a certain stage of breast cancer where they need to remove the entire breast or part of the breast. Is that right? Or give you a reconstruction? Can you explain a little more?
So there's different procedures or options to go with when it comes to reconstruction. Sometimes not at all, which is there is a flat movement for that right now because
Hmm.
back with reconstruction after breast cancer does tend to have a pretty high rejection rate. Ultimately, that leads to many more surgeries, a lot more healing, more drain on your finances, so on and so forth. Many of these women have families and stuff, so they can't really, and insurance is a big deal in whether or not they will assist with any further correction if there is things left bad. Now, I will say I do a lot of 3D areolas, but I do a lot of art scar cover-ups because I do see a lot of bad cases where things are off and the scars are horrendous and, there's too much skin, excess here, excess there, which really kind of distorts what the body is supposed to look like. Um, but and when it comes to reconstruction, so there's flat, there's where they go back in with implants, and there's flat procedures. And a flat procedure is where they may take skin and tissue or skin tissue and muscle from another part of the body, usually the inner thighs, the stomach, abdominal area, or underneath in the shoulder, this fat part here. And they'll use that almost as a wedge, a football wedge sometimes, and plug that in and then sew that together. And the reason they will do that is because that pretty much has closer to 100% of acceptance. But to fit a chunk of something else into another hole, not all the time. There are some really good doctors, but oftentimes I see where they don't heal correctly. And a lot that skin on the surface is going to heal white, but not getting into the technical process.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, Lita, I just have so many questions for you. Like, I mean, this is like such an amazing thing to specialize in because tattooing is one thing, right? You're like allowing people to express themselves, but this is when you said the word transformation, it's helping people heal. I just want to share a personal a story from my friend, and then I have a bunch of questions, which is my friend Stacy was diagnosed with breast cancer at 30, and it was advanced to the point where they decided to do double mastectomy, to like remove the entirety. She decided that she wanted to get the breast implants,
Mhm.
right? So and she said she wanted to go quote as big as possible. And I was laughing at that. And she was like, well, why not? Right. She's like, if they're going to give them to me, I might as well go as big as I can. And we were all, she tried to make it fun, but she shared to me in this moment of vulnerability after the surgery that, I saw what it looked like. It was like these two flat lines. So that it
Mhm.
didn't look like normal breasts, right? It did have the shape, but there was like there's a subtle difference. And she had shared, you mentioned this idea about like having sex and being confident. She had a boyfriend at the time, and she said something along the lines of like, well, my boobs look weird. And it was just a simple sentence, but I heard so much in it of like, I heard the vulnerability of not feeling in touch with your body. I mean, I can't really simulate how that would feel, but I can imagine it's painful to not have the body you're used to and to not feel like maybe the same kind of woman and womanhood. I mean, we talk a lot about losing our hair. In fact, I was just submitting a film about four women's cancer journeys. Two of them are breast cancer to film
Mhm.
festivals, and a lot of them talk about how painful it is to lose their hair, but we don't talk about what it's like to lose our breasts, that part of womanhood. And so to reconstruct and change it as a new maybe area for art, right? Like you said, you have a design behind you that looks like two flowers, the blue and the red. Is that this fish behind you? Uh,
This one up here?
yeah, are those flowers?
Yes, it is. That one is actually in my portfolio if you go see the before picture. So I do a lot of artwork to create an illusion, to reshift the focus of the eye, to
Hmm.
reshape that portion of the body. So that was a dream, but yes, that's my little Fibonacci style
Yeah,
piece.
so talk about like the creativity from your side of using like a new kind of canvas and creating a new style of art and how that can be healing for women.
Um, First and foremost, it's the mental health aspect of it. Like you said, it's in that subtle statement that your friend made, you heard a lot in it. And with the breast, it is considered to be a sexual part of the body. As a woman, we grow up, that's sort of our identity when it comes to sexuality in a sense. And
Yeah.
when that is altered and distorted, it really plays mental negativity and on your confidence and things like that, your desire to want to get sexual with your partner and so on and so forth. So in my drawing process, I always consult with my clients first. I really like to I'm searching for the emotion. I'm searching for where that break is and what bothers them the most. But ultimately, it's in creating something that when they leave here, they leave topless and they're proud of this amazing artwork because they no longer have that reminder of the most horrific time in their life.
Yeah, so my friend Stacy got these like two intertwined snakes and flowers and like it's so beautiful and it peeks through her shirt and like
Hmm.
it becomes something to be proud of and it's like utilizing something where if you had traditional breasts with the areolas like you said, you might not be able to create that same kind of art and look. So like yeah, creating something that is better, not better than what was before, but like I guess building on the benefit of having more of a blank slate maybe. I don't know how to explain it. Like you said you think about drawing the eye. That's very interesting. Like, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so a lot of times, even with implants, one breast will be lower than the other. One's more protruding. If they do any kind of nipple or skin sparing, one might be to the left, one might be to the right. We don't know, one up, one down. And so there's a lot of imbalance most of the time after breast cancer. And my objective with each and every one of them is to work with that imbalance and create the illusion that that imbalance is not there.
Hmm.
Anytime you work with a lighter canvas than what you're putting on the surface, when you're done, the eye immediately is going to go to the artwork. They're not going to see that breast cancer. They're not going to see that there was
Hmm.
a surgery done.
Hmm.
And like you said, she got double snakes and it's peeking out of her shirt. A lot of women will get bold with it. Um, and it gives them something proud of in that whole mental aspect that they want to go out and go, look at this amazing art. This is so beautiful. But when they came in, they were in tears and wouldn't even show themselves.
Hmm. Yeah. Can you, so you started with Alice. Tell me about the evolution from that to boobsandtattoos.com. You said, I can see that you're based in Florida, right? Like, tell me about what it took from there to today and how you're, how many women you've worked with or just other people.
It's been a lot of transformation and growing, not only within myself, but in my knowledge of breast cancer and the medical community and trying to break that side because there's never really been a bridge between the two communities. Tattooers, even 12 years ago, were not seen as on a medical level, I guess you could say. So
Hmm.
get the confidence of if the woman wanted to try to get reimbursed for tattooing, which is included in most insurance policies, it did not cover.
Really?
Yes, it's
Wow.
written in for 3D areolas. Now, this is one of the things that I am advocating for today. Just a little side note here, and that is my next goal is, and I have a whole team of medical people coming behind me now. But going back, so I had Alice and I did her and I posted it, and then I had a couple more come to me. And in Tennessee, which was kind of the Bible Belt, that sort of thing was, it's here and there. I just couldn't really get any going there. And I was kind of in a really bad place in life. And my friend called me up one day and she's like, "You want to go to Florida?" And I'm like, "Sure, when?" And she's like, "Today." And I'm like, "Perfect, let's go." So
You said you're a leaf on the wind. Yeah.
I follow the wind. So we started driving, and this is part of the backstory, but about the time we were coming into Atlanta area, heading south, we were going to the Tampa area, and I'd never been here before. I didn't know anybody here. I had no reason to come here. But whatever, along for the ride. We'll see what happens. And about the time we was coming through Atlanta, the audible voice, which has kind of spoke to me a few times in my life at very, very pivotal moments, began to speak. And it was just the voice that was saying, "There's something here for you. There's something here for you. There's something here for you." And it wouldn't shut up until I'm looking at my friend. I'm going, I think there's something here for me. I don't really know what it is, but I keep getting that, kind of impression. So we get there, we come back, nothing happened. And she sent me an apartment rental thing one day. And I just made a comment to her in text and was like, "That's great, but I got to have a job." And the moment I sent that text, this little voice in my head said, well, look for one, stupid. So I had my computer open. I started pecking away and I found one ad for an all-female studio. And they hired me sight unseen. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, perfect. Well, if it's meant to be, um, this is such an amazing journey. At this second time in my life, I said, well, I'll put a for sale sign, in my front yard. I bought a house about a year and a half prior. And I did and had a cash buyer within 24 hours. So I thought, okay, that's my sign. It's time. This is the second time I've done that in my life. And I took off to Florida. I did not take the job. It was a really disgusting studio. So then I had a problem. I was sitting there with my moving truck. But lo and behold, I was determined because I believed in the voice and would drive back to Nashville to work every month to make enough money to stay in Florida to keep looking for a job. And through some pretty miraculous things, I ended up at a really nice studio up in Tarpon, and I was able to kind of really grow with them. And they were 100% on board with what I was doing and gave me a lot of support in that. So when I was off, on my days off, I put together these press packets and stuff, and I'd go door to door to every breast surgeon, oncologist office, cancer hospitals, cancer centers. And I canvassed like 3 different counties surrounding us.
You'd bring pictures, the before and afters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I sent them, yes, they had before and afters, my introduction letter, my history, what I had behind me at that time, just hoping that somebody would kind of start filtering in. And sure enough, about, I don't know, 2 months later, I had a lady come in for a lace bra, of all things. We hit it hard right out of the gate. And another one came in for areolas. And little by little, it just started snowballing from there and getting more and more and more. Eventually ended up with the great support of a plastic surgeon who allowed me to come in and put my stuff into his office and whatnot. So more and more women started coming. After about 3 to 3.5 years of that, I became so busy. I kind of had really just outgrown the studio and needed to have more control of the environment for the women. So me and my wife opened Metamorphosis Inc. And we named it Metamorphosis because of that transformation. And the day we did that, and we attached the tagline, transforming scars, transforming lives, one drop of ink at a time. And so we started really pushing the market. It was getting bigger in that. I have a protege that started with me who will probably not probably, she will stand to take the studio over one day once I'm up and about and retiring. And just started developing a team over the years. We have 4 other artists in the studio now, and everybody is working their way up. 2 of them are already there to do exactly what I do because we've got busy. I can't do it all.
And people, sorry to cut you off, people come from outside Tampa area to come to you?
They do. We landed 3 different news segments. Bay News 9 in the local area gave me, it was either a 2 or 3 segment nationwide. And when that launched, then we started getting calls from Texas and North Carolina and New York and all over the place. So women started flying in at that point. Even a male. I'm not going to exclude men because I have one male fly in to see me. And
of course.
Yeah. They have a chance of getting breast cancer too. And men usually aren't worried about their scars and stuff like that. But some of them are, especially when they mess up a nipple or an areola that has a really horrific scarring. So that does tend to concern. So with that, we opened the studio. It's growing. I'm building the team. We're going places. We've been in most every print magazine here. The city had me come speak, and then the Rotary Club, Florida Hospital Cancer Center for Women's Group, Moffitt Cancer Center is one of my biggest referrals today. I did the local museum had an exhibit, Jagged Lines, the history of tattooing in America, and I was in an 8-month exhibit out of 10 artists. And
it's just been growing and growing, and you're already. Can I just jump in and ask again? Like, you've how many people do you think you guys have worked with since you started Metamorphosis Inc.?
Hundreds,
Mm. Can
hundreds.
you?
We've been open for 6 years now. And I would say when we started, I would say probably 30% of my clientele was breast cancer or mastectomy, chest related. Some have left and stuff, so we work with those women too. People of color, that a lot of times they'll have a loss of pigmentation, so it really goes kind of all over the board.
Mhm.
Coming back to refresh my mind one more time. What was the?
Oh yeah, my next question was going to be, can you tell me another memorable story of a client that you worked with that just really stands out to you, Lita?
I can. When I had a client come in one day and she had decided to go flat and she had a lot of excess skin and the scar was all over the place. She had radiation, had a real bad radiation patch up here and stuff. And oh, let me take a drink too. um, so we did the consultation, and at that point, I run a few months out. I try not to get more than 6 months out of my calendar. Uh, so at that time, I was about 3.5 months out. In between the consultation time and her coming in for her first appointment, she had a checkup with the doctor. So when she came in for the first appointment, she had a real down kind of energy. Usually they're excited or they're nervous or something. And she just seemed kind of down when she was in the chair. And I was like, what's going on? And she goes, well, you remember how I told you I went to have that checkup? And I said, yes. And she said, the cancer's back. And they're saying that there's nothing they can do at this point, and they're not sure, how much time I have left to live. And I experienced that kind of emotion with a client. It was very strange. It was very impactful. So I started working with her. I said, "Do you want to continue, the tattoo and get the whole thing?" And she said, "Absolutely. I want to die beautiful. If I die, I want to die beautiful." And it just broke my
Mm.
heart. And it was a very large piece that we were working.
Mm.
And so we continued over several appointments to get her there and stuff. Well, that fall, we had a tattoo competition in Tampa. The Tampa conference was in town. And I said, you know what? Let's enter you into this contest. And so I took her downtown. She was okay with getting topless on the stage, getting up there for a chest piece. She was the only one, amongst all these amazing chest pieces and stuff, which hers was amazing too. And she took first place, I believe it was. She was I was either first or second. And for her to know that she had an award-winning piece changed everything right there. There was a lot of energy put into that. But the beauty of it was, because she had had doctor's appointments in between now and then, was after all that was said and done, she had gone back in for her 6-month checkup and for them to do the next scans and stuff, and it was gone. And I really kind of believe that the amount of energy that we had put into that and we had talked and, stuff had a little something to do with the outcome.
I think it might have had a little more than a little something. It's funny, I was actually just about to ask about that, like this idea of self-perception. So I want to ask about that in just a second, but I want to remind everyone that this podcast is brought to you by Yo-Yos. You own your own stories, a documentary and podcast storytelling company that demystifies cutting-edge technology with emotional human stories. If you've got a cool story to share, we can help you get it out there. So, yeah, Lita, my question was going to be, I have a sneaking suspicion. In fact, I've even read studies about the impact of your perception of yourself, your love for your body, your health, your belief in your body's ability to heal on the impact of your cancer going and coming. I think that sometimes can be a pretty divisive thing to say, but I do think I was going to ask you, like, do you think that like that metamorphosis of how they see themselves has actually helped with the physical healing and prevention of cancer reoccurrence?
I don't think that it's helped with cancer reoccurrence, except for in the essence of what I just said, with it being a kind of an energy play.
Mm-hmm.
It has absolutely done everything to transform the mentality of how they see themselves and how they go forward in the future and present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that it really does change. It's interesting with our studio. Once we really started going with the breast mastectomies, I had a girl. This is another interesting case, and this was another landmark of my career because when I got into mastectomies, I was like, oh my God, this is it. I've landed there. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But then this young girl came in one day and she was a self-harm prior
Mm-hmm.
person. And she had these scars up and down her arm. And she says, I see what you do with the mastectomies. Could you help me? Because I see these all the time and I don't want the reminder that society puts on you when they see, these scars. So I started working with her and did some cool stuff on her. And she ended up being the person that I went on the next news channel with for mental health awareness. So I did breast cancer awareness in October and then mental health awareness segment pieces like that. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. I've made it. And then one day, a transgender person walked into the studio and it had gender affirming top surgery and it's like, I see what you do. And from here, it just goes all over the place. There's really not anything we don't cover. And all of it has to do with that same identity and how you feel about yourself.
I think one thing you can definitely confidently say is that when you have one of these beautiful works of art that draw the eye, that help to, compensate for things like jagged scars or different sizes, that they have a stronger sense of self than they were coming in with. And that's gotta feel good. That's gotta feel good, right? I mean, it's gotta feel good. Let me ask you about the future. So unfortunately, I don't think breast cancer is going to go down anytime soon. I think, unfortunately, we're going to continue to keep getting it. We're looking for cures and better treatments, and there's lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. But from an artist, from a tattooing perspective, what do you see as the future of the partnership between, you said as a clinical provider, what's your biggest prediction for the future of this space?
If I am able to accomplish all of the dreams and tasks that I currently am on the path for, I'm kind of bridging that gap personally because I don't know of another studio that has their NPI or healthcare provider licensing, which allows me to work with insurance companies so they can get reimbursed. So I would like to eventually make it to where there is some sort of a certification process that would allow tattooers who are trained in the art of tattooing to be able to do the same procedures. But more so than that, we have a lot of nurses in offices that will tattoo the areolas out of the office for the insurance purpose and the fact that they don't want to refer out. If that's the case, a majority of the time, that's not a good outcome because they're nurses, they're not tattoo artists. We've gone through years and years of training to get to where we are. And in a majority of states, all it takes to get a certification to tattoo, and areolas are considered cosmetic. So in order to do that, you can take a 3-day or a 1-week course, get
Mhm.
certification, learn how to tattoo 2 circles in the same color. My biggest beef with that is that it's not doing the woman justice in the end. And the most important part is that mental aspect and that healing, the aftermath. This is the last chapter in her journey of that. You got one shot to do it. You shouldn't have to make her do it over and over again. So there does need to be some kind of regulation when it comes to tattooing mastectomies specifically. And another fight of mine is, the insurance companies will only release money for areola tattooing, but a lot of times the scars are too bad to be able to even suggest areola tattooing. That woman should be able to use that same amount of money to put into artwork if that's what it's going to take for her mental health. And the reason they approve it is because they say it's for her mental health. So that's another thing that I'm doing. And then there are some other things in the mix that I can't really disclose at this point in time. That
No
we are
worries.
in disclosure orders with some people. But there's something really big coming behind that. I just Sunday got back from ASBS, the ASBRS conference out in Vegas, which is the annual Society of Breast Surgeons. Amazing thing. I have an amazing promoter who is like vice president of a huge medical company that does specifically breast cancer research, who took me out there under their company to specifically introduce me with some of the top breast surgeons in the nation. We've just produced and published, I'll show you here real quick, my second book, Boobs and Tattoos, which is going into many, many offices right now because of the accreditation that I have. Doctors are trusting.
Show me a page.
Show you a page? Okay, let me show you your page.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. So there's like, this one is like an all nipple page.
Uh-huh.
You can see different outcomes from different surgeries and stuff. It's not always, sometimes they don't necessarily want to cover the scars, but they want to go with something underneath that pulls the eye.
That's so cool. Yeah, I saw the one on the website that's like a corset, like brassiere almost, which I thought was really clever.
Yeah, I do a lot of lace and a lot of draw-on stuff, pieces like, this. And I think
that's so cool.
In different ones. So there's a lot of ways that we can approach it. I did also write the first book, Boobs and Tattoo, which is what I use in my seminars because I travel and teach to tattoo artists how to do what I do. So that's more of a tattooer's how-to book.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's really all over the place with what we're doing and where we're going and how it's expanding. I've picked up a few speaking engagements. I'll be talking at the Patient Provider Conference and the National Sales Meeting for Prelude X, which is the big medical company with area breast cancer research.
Yeah, Leona's the one that introduced us. So I think that that's a natural fit. I think what it sounds like is it would be nice to have a study that definitively proved what you already know, which is that there's a marked increase in positive mental image and mental health after this procedure. But, we typically don't think of a tattoo inking as a procedure, right? But I think, maybe it's a little different than the word procedure. But yeah, I really wish that for you. But I mean, Lita, it sounds like nothing but continuous meteoric rise for you and Metamorphosis Inc. and your wife and the whole crew. And it's just amazing. Yes. So happy to hear that.
Thank you. Well, it's been an amazing ride.
Is there anything else you wish people knew?
I'm available. We are available. We live, our studio, we just moved, got a brand new studio. All in right timing for everything that's happening and lining up a brand new website, all that stuff. But we are right on the water. So we have a little hotel. You could literally walk to our studio. You could also walk to the beach if you wanted to. That's really nice as an advantage. You can find us at boobsandtattoos.com. My personal information is Artist Lita. If you want to see my portfolio on Instagram, that's where I mostly post everything. Except for boobs anymore because I keep getting put in jail.
Because it's illegal. Free the nipple, as they say back in the day. But I think that we're going to link to Metamorphosis Inc.'s website, the boobsandtattoos.com, in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on, Lita, and thanks for listening to Cool, Cool, Cool. I'm Cameron Kitt from Yo-Yos, and a huge thank you to Lita Bendoon from Metamorphosis Inc. for joining us and sharing your incredible story.
Thank you for the opportunity.